Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Jerry Parker, Executive Director of the Korean War Memorial Foundation. I would like to welcome all of you, on behalf of the Foundation, to this dedication of the future Korean War Memorial, which will be built right behind us, subject, of course, to approval by the Presidio Trust and to the people of San Francisco Bay Area. We must undergo a long evolutionary process before this gets completed, but this is a very, very important first step. And we're pleased that you're here to share it with us. We would like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance of the United States, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance of the Republic of Korea. If you would all please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now, if you'd remain standing, I'd like to introduce Consul Lee Kwang-ho of the Republic of Korea, Consulate General in San Francisco, to lead the Korean national anthem. Consul Lee.
It's the Korean national Pledge of Allegiance, so I'll do it in Korean. 국기에 대한 맹세. 나는 자랑스러운 태극기 앞에 자유롭고 정의로운 대한민국의 무궁한 영광을 위하여 충성을 다할 것을 굳게 다짐합니다.
Thank you very much, Consul Lee. Please be seated, everyone. In addition to our speakers, whom you're about to meet, we have a number of distinguished guests in the audience today. Since we're honored to have quite a few with us, I'm going to list them in alphabetical order, and I would ask that you hold any applause until I've completed the list. We have Consul Reginald Bernabe, Consulate General of the Philippines, a nation that contributed to the United Nations effort during the Korean War. The Honorable Bart von Bolhuis, Consul General of the Netherlands, another member of the UN forces. Rear Admiral Thomas F. Brown III, U.S. Navy retired, one of our Foundation board members. Eminent sculptors Mark and Janelle Bird of Dallas, who are in the process of creating the bronze bas-relief that will be the centerpiece of the memorial once it's approved by the Presidio Trust and the public. Ms. Kathleen Collins, representative of Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, California's 19th District. Lieutenant Commander Arthur W. Curtis, U.S. Coast Guard retired, another of our Foundation board members. Mr. Kevin Kim, President, USS Posco Industries of Pittsburgh, California. Ms. Patty Kim, District Deputy Counsel for Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, California's 18th District. Judge Quentin Kopp, former San Francisco Supervisor, California State Senator, and Superior Court Judge, San Mateo County, as well as a Foundation board member. Ms. Kathy McCall, representing the Veterans Administration. Mr. Frank Mendez, U.S. Merchant Marine, retired, and a Foundation board member. Ms. Katrina Rill, representative of Congresswoman Jackie Spear, California's 14th District. The Honorable Georges Schmidt, Consul General of Luxembourg, another nation that contributed to the UN effort. And Madame Huguette Schmidt. And Ms. Cheryl Skoma, owner of Skoma's Restaurant, a San Francisco landmark since 1965, and a true friend of this foundation. Thank you all. Finally, and our most important guests of all, the Korean War veterans and their families who have sacrificed so much. Could we please have some applause for the Korean War veterans? Would all Korean War veterans please stand and be recognized? of our veterans here today is the Sergeant John Dalton, U.S. Marine Corps, who is about to have his 83rd birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday, Sergeant Dalton. We also have two Navy Cross winners, Congressman McCloskey and Gunnery Sergeant Denny Weisgerber. Please stand to be recognized. At this point, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. It's our foundation treasurer, generous donor, and Korean War veteran, Mr. Don Reed. Don is a retired Wells Fargo executive as well as a Marine combat veteran of the Korean War, and he will read some remarks prepared by Senator Dianne Feinstein for presentation to you today. Don?
Thank you, Jerry. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I have the honor of giving the statement of Senator Dianne Feinstein at this memorable site dedication for the Korean War Monument. Senator Feinstein would have been here, but she is required to be in Washington, D.C. in attendance to Senate matters. May I say that Senator Feinstein has been a dedicated supporter of this memorial since its beginning and has been a steadfast ally throughout. Her statement follows. The Korean War began on June 25, 1950, when North Korean forces burst across the 38th parallel and invaded South Korea without warning or provocation. The United Nations sent a multinational force from 21 member countries to help the democratic South defend itself against the communist aggressors. The war dragged on for 3 brutal years, leaving in its wake millions of military and civilian casualties on both sides. Today, we mark the 60th anniversary of the end of major hostilities in that bitter struggle, and we come together to commemorate and honor those courageous Korean War veterans for their selfless sacrifice in defense of South Korean freedom and democracy. We must make sure the so-called forgotten war is always remembered. It is appropriate that we gather to dedicate the future site of a Korean War memorial here in the Bay Area. San Francisco was the embarkation point for so many Americans who fought in that war, and the end of the journey for so many who returned through the Golden Gate, both living and dead. To all Korean War veterans here today, thank you for your service, and many thanks to everyone for your support of this memorial and your remembrance of the more than 200,000 Americans, South Koreans, and Allied soldiers who gave their lives in the name of freedom for the Republic of Korea. Senator Dianne Feinstein.
Thank you, Don, and thank you to Senator Feinstein. I'm now pleased to introduce our foundation president, Congressman Pete McCloskey. Pete, as you know, served as United States Congressman representing the peninsula from 1967 to 1983. As a Marine Rifle Platoon leader in the Korean War, he received the Navy Cross, the Silver Star for Valor, and 2 Purple Hearts for wounds received. He now leads a more peaceful life as a working farmer in Rumsey, California, and an occasionally not so peaceful life as a working attorney with his law firm in San Mateo. Pete.
I bring you greetings from my own Congresswoman, Jackie Spear, who some of you may know has more shrapnel in her body than most of us veterans of the war. You remember she was shot and left for dead down in Guyana when she was working for Congressman Leo Royan some years ago, and she's serving wonderfully in the Congress today. We meet this morning to dedicate a memorial to the men who fought and died in a war that ended in an uneasy truce some 60 years ago today. And I want to thank the president of the trust who's given us this spot for a monument. Some of you may remember if that fog would lift over there, we could see the 38th parallel that runs through Marin County, and there's some mountains over there that would remind you of where we fought. Anyway, it's more than a memorial. We pause to remember our debt to the Korean people who suffered so much. Millions killed or made refugees in a 3-year war which devastated a beautiful country the size of California. A war that never needed to have been fought had we not made, as Americans, a tragic mistake in 1945 when we allowed Korea to be divided. And that mistake was compounded 5 years later when our Secretary of State made a public announcement that South Korea lay outside our defense perimeter in the Pacific. That was an open invitation to Kim Il-sung to invade the South, armed with superior weapons, particularly the T-34 tank, which had been furnished by the Soviet Union, and a North Korean army of very tough, hardened soldiers, many of them with years of experience in fighting the Chinese nationalists and Japanese. We can thank President Truman for moving swiftly to South Korea's defense. The facade of the monument that will be erected here will commemorate the Incheon landing on September 15, 1950, which led to the recapture of Seoul 2 weeks later. In the flush of victory, though, General MacArthur ignored Mao Zedong's warning that if we sent American troops to the border with China, China would enter the war. China taught us a bitter lesson. They sent 300,000 men at night, hiding during the day, surrounded the 1st Marine Division, drove the 8th Army in headlong retreat, and dividing Korea again in a line very close to the 38th parallel. But I think that, as South Korea's new president has said, and as I quote Park Geun-hye, she said, "We need to look forward with hope, not to the past with bitterness." And our own president, Barack Obama, has spoken and written very eloquently about the audacity of hope. And I think it might be all of our hopes that President Obama might do now what President Nixon did back in 1971 by personally going to China to open a dialogue with Mao Zedong, a nation with which we had been at war 18 years earlier. That dialogue has led to a peace, sometimes an uneasy peace, but it's lasted for 42 years. Ideally, President Obama might seek to visit the North Korean capital at Pyongyang to meet with Kim Il-sung's grandson and express the hope that North Korea will rejoin the community of nations, reaffirm its one-time commitment to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and constructively move towards reconciliation with South Korea. It was a privilege of many of us here today, now in our 80s, to fight in Korea over 62 years ago, and I, for one, and I hope you'll join me in this, would feel privileged to go to Pyongyang and shake hands with some of those young Koreans that fought against us 62 years ago. I think many of you have seen that wonderful photograph of Gettysburg with the stone wall, 30-some years after the war, with the Northerners and the Southerners shaking hands. I'd like to do that. William Tecumseh Sherman once said, "War is hell." And I think that those of us who experienced a little of that hell in Korea have a special duty to try to preserve the peace, if it's at all possible in this nuclear age. It was 150 years ago that our own North and South were in a bitter war, that the Battle of Gettysburg was fought this month, 150 years ago. I think the memorial we built here in this beautiful spot next to our own national cemetery will perhaps remind us of the hope that the Korean people, both North and South, will someday enjoy the unity, friendship, and peace that the American people have been privileged to finally achieve 150 years after Gettysburg. More than most, I think we Americans owe it to the Korean people to try to see that there is never again a war that would devastate the Korean Peninsula a place easily as beautiful as California. If President Obama should go to Pyongyang, like President Nixon went to Beijing 42 years ago, he might well be able to stop such a war, begin a genuine and lasting process towards a meaningful peace, and let those of us who fought in Korea over 60 years ago have the same hope, and that Korea, like the United States, will someday be one nation, not two. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman McCloskey. Our next speaker is our Foundation Vice President, Mr. Man-jae Kim. Man-jae is an immigrant to this country, a very successful entrepreneur, restaurateur. He's also the son of a Korean War veteran. I would like you to welcome Mr. Man-jae Kim.
안녕하세요. 오셔서 감사합니다. 저는 김만조입니다. 1948년에 태어났고요. 미국에 1972년에 왔습니다. My name is Man-jae Kim, and I'm from Korea. And I came here in 1972. I have a faint memory as a child. Right after the war, Korea was in ruin, and all the village was torn down. And as we all know, Koreans were so hungry, starving to death, and there was no hope. And I remember many GIs who stationed in Korea continued to help us. And I remember one instant that when I was a little boy, one day I was walking the village road after school, and a three-quarter truck was passing by, and as usual, I was asking something because I was always hungry. I begged for something, and this American GI threw me something, and it landed on the road. And as I picked it up, a small carton, I didn't know what it was, and it was spilling because it was broken. And since I was so hungry, I just drank what it was, and the taste was so good. And that was my first experience of milk. And I'm so happy that I traced my legacy and to Korea. And Korea is now, as we all know, a shining star in the world. And I'm so happy that they are the first country to send many volunteers to earthquake-torn country, and also help many children in Asia, Africa, and South America. And we'll never forget all the service and sacrifice and commitment made by Korean War veterans. Thank you so much. The only problem I still have is that I still drink milk every morning. Well, it is my honor to introduce the next speaker, Consul General Mr. Han Dong-man. Again, Mr. Han Dong-man.
Dear veterans, families, the Honorable President McCloskey, Vice President Man-Jae Kim, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great honor and privilege to be part of today's program. First and foremost, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to all of you veterans for being here today. My special thanks go to General Parker, Executive Director of the Foundation, to organize this very meaningful event. This year marks the 63rd year since the Korean War broke out. Without your heroism, valor, and sacrifice, to this Korea would not be enjoying peace, democracy, and economic prosperity. We Koreans were able to build up our country from the ashes just after the Korean War to the 12th largest economy in the world. And Korea is the unique country in the world because it has transformed from aid recipient country to aid donor country. There is a Korean saying, a friend in need is a friend indeed. With this in mind, we'll continue to reach out to people in need worldwide. This year also marks the 60th anniversary of our mutual defense treaty and the Korean War armistice. Our two countries' relationship is often called a blood alliance. Korea and this great country, the United States, have almost nothing in common in terms of geography, culture, and people, but we fought together to defend South Korea against communism. Because of this shared history, we do have at least one important trait in common. There is the value that we place on peace and freedom, because the freedom is not free. Korea has changed drastically in the last 6 decades, but there is one thing that will remain forever unchanged. There is sincere gratitude that all the Koreans have toward all of you, the Korean War veterans. The Korean War is no longer a forgotten war, but a forgotten victory. Every one of you veterans deserve the title of a hero. And your sacrifice, devotion, and dedications will be forever recorded in history. I strongly believe the younger generations must be educated on how pivotal the Korean War was and how important our bilateral relations is. So I have no doubt the Korean War monument will serve as a valuable place for the education of a young generation and commemoration of your valor and heroism as well as your sacrifice. The President of the Republic of Korea, Park Geun-hye, has pledged to make a country of which the Korean War veterans can be proud. So I hope that all of you here will continue to support and promote the alliance between Republic of Korea and this great country, the United States. God bless America, God bless Korea, God bless all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Consul General Han Dong-man. The Consul General is a strong supporter and ally of the Foundation, and his support is much appreciated by all of us. Now I am pleased to introduce Mr. Craig Middleton, Executive Director of the Presidio Trust since 2001, and a most dedicated steward of this wonderful public resource. Craig and his capable staff have done a remarkable job protecting this National Historic Landmark District's rich history, its environmental integrity, and its recreational, educational, and cultural benefits for all of us today and for generations to come. And this is now being done, incidentally, without any annual taxpayer support. Please welcome Mr. Craig Middleton.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us at the Presidio today on this chilly, foggy, beautiful morning. I'm truly honored to be among such a distinguished group of men and women to talk about commemorating the heroism of so many who sacrificed in the Korean War. I have the additional honor of representing the Presidio Trust, which has been entrusted with the stewardship of the Presidio in partnership with the National Park Service. For reasons that I know you will appreciate, the Presidio has been afforded a status given by our country only to a few select places. Those places that are considered emblematic of our country, places that can best convey to Americans and to the world elements that we consider essential to understanding the American character. We protect, we revere these places, our national parks, our national historic landmarks, our national cemeteries, because of what they mean to us and because of what they say about the values of our nation. The Presidio is such a place. Not only does its history parallel in time the history of the United States, it being established in 1776, the year of our Declaration of Independence, but the Presidio also speaks to an ethos of service and commitment that we treasure as an essential component of personal, community, and national character. I'm not qualified to speak about Korea. I leave that to those of you who served there and to those of you who come from there. But I could list many connections between the Presidio and the Korean War. And in fact, these associations were part of the justification for the Presidio's nomination, now 50 years ago, for designation as a National Historic Landmark District. Last week, the Board of Directors of the Presidio Trust, understanding that there is yet to be much to be decided about design, about placement, about site configuration, and other issues, voted unanimously to endorse your efforts to place a memorial in the Presidio to those who served in Korea. I want to convey our appreciation for your commitment, for your engagement with us on design and other issues, and for your partnership. We will continue to work together as we move through the various processes that are necessary, and I know the project will get better and better as we move along the way. But I do want to underscore our commitment to working with you and make a fitting memorial to the Korean War happen. It's long overdue. So despite the fog, what a glorious morning it is. What an important moment we share today. What an amazing group of people you are. And what an important endeavor we are pledging ourselves to accomplish together. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Craig. Our next speaker, I'm very pleased to introduce San Francisco Supervisor Mark Farrell. Mark represents District 2, which is where he grew up, incidentally, and which includes, geographically, the Presidio. He's a graduate of Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles with an MA from University College Dublin, and holds a law degree from the University of Pennsylvania Law School. Supervisor?
Thank you, and it is an honor to be here today as the District 2 Supervisor, as was mentioned, which covers the Presidio here in San Francisco. And I want to continue to thank Craig Middleton for his incredible stewardship, not only being a friend to so many great efforts here in the Presidio and our veterans, but to be such an incredible steward here of one of the great natural treasures of our country and here in San Francisco. You know, especially to be here today on July 27th, that marks the 60th anniversary of the armistice ending major hostilities in the Korean War. Over 33,000 brave men and women from the United States lost their lives in the Korean War, and we honor them for their ultimate sacrifice to our country. Yet today we also honor those who are here today, who are still with us, and the living veterans who fought and gave so much, and their families gave so much to all of us as U.S. citizens. I know that many of these veterans that I have had the great chance to meet and continue to speak with are residents and natives of not only San Francisco, but here in the Bay Area. And this Korean War Memorial will continue to serve as a remembrance for those brave men and women who served in the Korean War. And let me also say, as on a personal note, as the son of an Air Force veteran, my father flew the B-52s in Vietnam. Today is another great day to honor our military veterans across all wars for all of their sacrifices. I think as a city, as a community, as a country, but certainly here locally, there's never enough that we can do to honor the service of not only the individuals, but also the sacrifice of the families that continue to defend our country across this globe. And I want to say thank you. And I think, as the Consul General mentioned, this Korean War Memorial is not only about thanking those that served, but it's also, as you see my children running around in the back, and apologies for the distraction, but it's about remembering and teaching the next generations to remember that we will never forget your service. So I want to thank you, and Mr. Parker, I have a proclamation from the San Francisco Board of Supervisors here to present to you, and I'll read quickly a few lines. The San Francisco Board of Supervisors commends the Korean War Memorial Foundation for protecting and creating a space, a dedicated space in San Francisco that commemorates the Korean War. The foundation was founded in June of 2010 with the purpose of building a permanent memorial to commemorate the Korean War, and is led by military veterans and Republic of Korea military veterans, both working together to create a space together to respect and honor the Korean War. The San Francisco Board of Supervisors congratulates the Korean War Memorial Foundation for all of your continued hard work. And it's signed by myself and the entire Board of Supervisors in San Francisco. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Farrell. We're honored to have this certificate. Bear with me. I'm now pleased to introduce Mr. Dennis Quinn, who is with us today to speak on behalf of California State Senator Leland Yee. Senator Yee, as many of you know, represents District 8, which includes San Francisco and San Mateo counties. An immigrant from China at the age of 3, he is the first Chinese American ever elected to the state Senate. He holds a bachelor's degree from UC Berkeley, a master's from SF State, and a PhD from the University of Hawaii. Representing him here today, Mr. Dennis Quinn, a Coast Guard veteran, incidentally.
We've done something about the weather. This is terrible. Unfortunately, the senator could not be here today. He is traveling. It's the break in the session where they have a chance to take care of it or whatever. But, wow. Although Senator Yee is not a veteran, his father was a veteran of World War II. He served in the United States Army. And Leland has a deep affection for the United States military. He's always been a strong supporter of veterans affairs and veterans issues. And he's very much impressed with what's being done here today. The concept that finally a memorial to those that served and gave their life or left, lived overseas, hopefully that a beautiful memorial will be established. And on a personal note, I think it's appropriate that it would be at a site like this, right next to the National Cemetery. It's kind of a linkage. In there, there's veterans buried that were in the Civil War and that fought with Custer, and people from our war with Spain, and all the previous wars we've been in. And it seems this is the appropriate site for it. It's overwhelming. It's gratifying to see such a large crowd here today. I wish the senator was here to see this, because I know he would truly be impressed by this. He does send his best wishes and hope for continued success. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis Quinn, and please convey our thanks to Senator Yee. Our last speaker today, but by no means our least, is the Secretary of the Korean War Memorial, John Stevens. John was a 20-year-old sergeant on December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. On September 15th, 1950, he was a captain of the first company to go over the seawall at the Incheon Landing, the turning point in the Korean War. Coming up on his 93rd birthday, I can honestly say that John works harder than anyone I know to help make this memorial a reality. He's dedicated, he's with it every day, and he's as sharp as a tack. If I leave a comma out of something, he catches me and corrects me. Please welcome Lieutenant Colonel John Stevens, United States Marine Corps.
Right after that. Thank you very much, Jerry, and distinguished guests. I've been asked to give an update of where we are in the foundation in the 3 years that we've been organized. As you all know, we've been granted 501c3 status, nonprofit status by the IRS. We've installed a great bilingual website. And most important, the Presidio Trust has provided to the foundation this grand location as the site for the memorial. You just have to look around and see what a great site it is. And it's a heavily trafficked site. Just under $300,000 has been committed in funding. About $280,000 of that came from the 4 officers of the foundation, and about $20,000 from individuals, including many of you who are present here today. And would all of you who have made a donation, please stand and be recognized. Somebody has made a donation. We have money in the bank. And thank you very much. Jerry Parker, your Master of Ceremonies, has been brought on board to manage the project as the Executive Director. And the way that he's managed this particular event gives us a good indication of how it's going. The foundation has rented an office on the Presidio. Mark Bird, a sculptor who is well known in the military community for his many military art projects, has been engaged. Mark was a Marine helicopter gunship pilot in Vietnam. Mark and his wife Janelle are present today. Mark, would you and Janelle please stand and be recognized? Mark is a Dallas Texan. As to the sculpture, which is the centerpiece of the memorial, the Incheon landing operation was one of the few operations in the Korean War that was totally unique. It took place at dusk, over a seawall, into an industrial area and without any rehearsal. It was decided to make the iconic photo with the Marines going over the seawall as the centerpiece or theme of the memorial. At the same time that we were considering that, at Quantico, Virginia, another group of people, the Marine Corps Association, had engaged Mark to develop a statuette based on the picture of the seawall to be used as an award for the outstanding officer graduate of basic school. The second objective of us having a memorial here is to provide a lasting educational tool for the public. We've all heard talk about this being a forgotten war, and as time goes by, it becomes even more forgotten. But we'll have a place here to educate those people who come and view the memorial. We appreciate the support of Consul General Hahn and are very optimistic. Thank you, Consul General. We hope that all of you will help us spread the word and encourage others, both individuals and corporations, to support our mission. Thank you.
Thank you, John. At this point, the speaking program is concluded. I would like all of you to join me, please, in a moment of silence for those who served in the Korean War but are no longer with us. If you would please stand. Thank you. Please remain standing as we play the national anthems of the United States and of the Republic of Korea. Could we have the music, please?
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous skies, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming. And the rockets red light, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Could we have the Korean national anthem, please? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. I would also, as an aside, an important aside, like to thank our Foundation Vice President, Restaurateur Manjay Kim, for providing the coffee and snack service for us today. Thank you, Manjay. We're coming to the conclusion of the ceremony, ladies and gentlemen. We have two American Korean War veterans here on stage, and I understand Mr. Young Kae has two Korean War veterans in the audience. If they would please join us, the four Korean War veterans together are going to unveil the sign that will serve as a place marker until the memorial itself has gone through the approval process and been completed and constructed and opened, which we project will be sometime summer 2015. But this sign is temporary on stage today, will be put in the ground this coming week, and the four veterans will now unveil it. Man, you okay? All right, gentlemen, if you would please unveil the sign. In the lower part of the photo, incidentally, one of those helmets you see is John Stevens. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's dedication of the future site of the Korean War Memorial. We thank you all for being part of this dedication. One final point. To your left, my right, you'll see a banner. This banner, as you leave, you might want to take a look at it, was presented to John Stevens by the children of Korea. And it's quite lovely and quite moving. And I encourage you to take a look at it. Thank you all very much for being with us here today.